Welcome everyone to Touching Base. I'm your host, Eric Arnold, and today I'm joined by my friends, Andrew Nall and Andy Ink. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Not bad.
Before we get started, it's been a week since we've seen each other, and we got the host, the incredible Pete Medhurst, which was, thanks again, Pete, for doing that. But we are trying to join each other and crack open a beer. Andy, you and I have started school back up, so I'm asking you guys, before we get started, what are you drinking today?
Well, with the start of school, I went with the Devil's Backbone Brewery to represent the first week of school. This Vienna Lager. It's pretty good.
That a boy, Mr. Nah. Are you doing swanky stuff again, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm explaining here to the focus goal.
Blurring it.
Yeah, blurring out on you. But I can tell. I believe is that a Bulleit's bourbon?
Yep.
Oh man, yeah, well, I've seen that blurry eyed several times before in my life. That's focused real easy for me. So look at, oh man, you're not even messing around, are you? Can you show that to us? The glass. It's like your glass has nipples or something.
There's some ginger ale in there too.
Fair enough. I am not as hardcore as you, but I am actually going back to one of an old favorites, which is a Mully's.
Nice.
I don't return my calls anymore. But it's their fruit tart camp, and it's one of their sour beers, and honestly, it's still really good, and I plan on enjoying it with you guys. I might even enjoy a couple others later. It's been a week. I want to talk to you guys because college football is actually about to start. We already got a couple games last week, but the big season really seems to be getting going. How are you guys feeling about college football? Are you excited about it? Are you nervous about it? Is there anything you want to talk about with it? No, all right, sounds good. Why do it? Yeah, don't even.
We did talk a little bit about it kind of being boring with the same 4, 5, 6 teams going into it. So I think the ceiling for the non-5 teams in the playoff is kind of low. So I guess that would be hard to keep the momentum up. But I did want to throw something out there that we didn't talk about in the pregame with the Key and Peele name game. The Alabama running back is Kool-Aid McKinstry. I just thought that was a nice little. It is.
He'll be a Heisman kid. He'll be an NFL player. You'll have a jersey at some point. I'm not surprised by that. I mean, there's a billion of those names. I mean, there's a reason why that sketch worked out so well. But besides that, I think you're right. Like you said, that it's once again, guess who's at the top of the polls? It's the same teams: Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and then Oklahoma. Right? Oklahoma's ranked number 2. And if I said right now, I'll give you $1,000 to bet against me. I say that those are going to be your exact 4, one from each different conference, not 2 SEC teams. It's just going to be strictly those 4. Would you take that bet?
No.
Yeah. And I mean, no chance. Even with all the parity that's in college football and the gamut that is the SEC. Alabama is going to, and Alabama, and Clemson's got a tough game. They're playing Georgia right away with Mr. Nah. I believe you and I have a little bit of action on that game against each other.
We do. There's a little bit of a wager on that one. I'm excited for it. I like it. 6 or 6.
And Ohio State is playing Oregon early on too. That's going to be a good one.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. Yeah, it's 6.5. Just so everyone at home knows, I've got the Bulldogs plus the points going against your Clemson Tigers. Mostly just I cannot stand Clemson. My sister went to South Carolina. Dabo Swinney, recognized him as a great coach, but my God, I'm tired of the act. Also a little tired of Alabama, a little tired of Ohio State, and Oklahoma doesn't really bother me as much as some of the other schools. But they're creeping up there. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Rattler talk for Heisman this year. That I'm probably going to lose it. Is it time to expand so we can get some more teams? I mean, or is it? It's fine right now. We need some other teams to start amping it up. We need those Georgias. We need Notre Dame. We need Texas A&M. We need. God bless. We need somebody else from the ACC. I know Miami and North Carolina are, supposed to be contenders, but they're still middle of the pack. Are they really going to have a chance of beating Clemson? What do we do about this?
I think it says a lot about those top teams must have just figured out the formula as far as it is to have those top teams every single year. And we talked earlier in the year about the NIL laws. Hopefully, maybe that will add some sort of parity where it'll take some of the, not the top people for Alabama, but, the 5th 5-star running back that Alabama gets might go somewhere else and help them out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I saw that there's one of the former Oklahoma quarterbacks got named to SMU's roster. He's probably going to light it up this year. So there's a good chance, he could make some money at one of like an SMU type school.
I wonder, like, we need to ask the question is, what is making the difference, right? And like, there's probably a lot of influence and a lot of factors that kind of determine where this ends up. But like the SEC or the Big Ten, like or Power 5 and Power 5. But those are two probably highest octane conferences right now, where you legitimately have 3 to 4 to 5 like teams that can go toe to toe with a lot of conferences, top 2 teams. So why is it that a place like Alabama or a place like Ohio State are seemingly so much better than their conference like they're
doing everything right?
And that's what it's distilling out like the recruiting, the players, or whatever else versus the coaching. Like you have somebody like Nick Saban, who is in the probably Mount Rushmore of football coaches. What's that contribution relative to LSU gets a ton of really good players that Alabama's also recruiting. A&M gets a lot of them. Georgia gets a lot of them, right? Why is Alabama still so much higher up? Is it the coaching? Go ahead.
Besides going down the route of saying they're paying their players, okay? Like I'm not going down that route, okay? But I'm saying that what are you looking for as a high school top athlete? You want to know that you can make it to the next level. Those are the schools that are going to do it for you. You want to go to a school that has a lot of tradition. Those are the schools that are going to do it. You want to go to a school that's going to bring you a lot of fan base. You're going to get a lot of viewership. Those are the schools that are going to do it. You want to have all the facilities. You want to have a history. You want to be able to, have alumni that are famous and take care of you, on the weekends. And if you want to go to their house for the weekend, you can. I'm sure other social factors, girls and stuff like that are always going to factor into these, equations, whether you like it or not. Also, the talent level, if you look at them, Ohio, Alabama, the Carolinas, Georgia, the South is still just rich with talent down there. And I think once you combine all those things, the history, all of it, it's just too much for the other ones to compete. And everyone's all kind of about the right now. And even look at LSU. LSU won the national championship, 2 years ago? And they're already talking about firing their coach this year. And he might have the second best team, or third best team, in the SEC because he's not cutting it. I mean, that's incredible to me. And that LSU team was highly recruiting, by the way, and just had some absolute monsters on that roster.
So speaking of recruiting, historically, California and Florida have usually hotbeds of talent going into football, and you look up down the line of the top 25, there's only Florida and Miami, and they're way down there. All these teams are picking players that typically, they're not in that zone. The California and Florida, the players are usually the best ones, will stay in state typically, but the past 5, maybe even 10 years, they're going outside the state to get what they need.
Yeah, and I think people are traveling and making contact a whole lot, easier and getting, more recognition sooner. Because it used to be like you could get a guy out of Florida that no one's ever seen before, and he ended up being a 3 or 4 star recruit. And I think there's more of those academies, like what is it?
Sycamore.
Bishop Sycamore. You got smacked by Bishop is out there. Which is a whole different world. Do you guys want to talk about that at all? Did you guys watch any of that game against IMG, who's, by the way, just putting out perennial all pro, going to school 0 times a day? Those guys beat grown men.
That whole concept of IMG Academy, I looked into that a lot. That's interesting because you think they should win all the time, and they don't win all the time. And I think there's other teams that are very competitive against them. But the whole the more of the Bishop smack my Bishop kind of thing unravels. I saw people talking about it yesterday, and I was like, what the hell is this about? And they're like, this is fake this, fake recruit bad, and fake offers. And I'm like, what are we even talking about? And then I saw more of it, and I was like, what? Just the whole thing kind of
they got conned. They got conned. There's a con. And by the way, they fired their coach.
And he's doing possible fraud charges on top of it.
Oh, there's a warrant out for the guy's arrest.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that you could fire a guy essentially from a made-up school. So I don't know.
Fired him.
It obviously
don't take his red stapler.
But yeah. Are there going to be more of these? Is this going to happen all the time? Did somebody
in the day and age of the digital era where there's so much real-time data available, it's like a red flag on ESPN for allowing it to happen. There's got to be somebody that didn't do their job.
But it wasn't even just like, I mean, like they scheduled IMG, which is true. IMG, I mean, they showed up too, but they also scheduled a bunch of other, like, you know, these essentially all pro teams, you know, in the high school ranks, and somehow something worked for them. They figured out something in it. I don't know if that was just a phone call. I don't know how that worked, or just the lack of accountability. You're right, like the journalism idea behind it. Who's checking in on this? Like, no athletic director was calling and saying, you know, who the heck are these guys? But then the funny part is they go out there and get rickrolled by essentially like D1 athletes. So I think they got what they deserved. I mean, they were talking about like, oh, we feel bad for them, even like during the announcements and stuff like that. Man, I don't feel bad for them. Like, they knew what they were doing.
They earned it.
Yeah, they went out there. Because we see these guys on the streets all the time who sit there and you always hear them in the backyard chirping, saying like, you know, we would have won states if coach would have pushed, you know, coach would have put me in, or like, man, that guy ain't got nothing on me, and all this like arrogance that's out there with all these guys. And then they, sure enough, they finally put their team together, and you know they were screaming at each other, saying like, "We got this. We're on ESPN, boy. You know, we're gonna get out there and crush these guys." And then they get the doors blown off them. You know, I think it was 58-0, and it could have been much worse.
Well, when I was still coaching, there was a kid that like essentially walked out of the parking lot. Now this is at a pretty prominent like Maryland football program.
Right? Yeah, top tier program. I know what you're talking about.
He won a state championship. When I was there, whatever. This kid like essentially walks in from the parking lot and was upset about his playing time like 2 days into his tenure because he, quote, was the best running back we had. Mm-hmm. And it's like, boss, you don't even know what offense we run, let alone what the plays are, let alone where you should stand. But it's just like that when you start talking about that, like that kind of attitude, and like
there's a way to earn more playing time.
Yeah,
you get better in practice and show you know it. You don't just say you're the best.
We kind of had run into like all the pound ball coaches that were like, you know, the rec league players, and like, oh, so he's this, and it's like, no, he's not. He doesn't know which way to face. You know, like it's just like it's a different league when you get into like a high school program, like even like a rinky-dink, albeit state championship level Maryland football program. Like it's a completely different world than what you guys do in travel or 7-on-7 or whatever it is. It's just a different world.
One of my favorite all-time things is actually in that same conference. I watch. We have one basketball program that's prominent over the others, and I remember I used to be one of the coaches for the 8th grade tournament. Andy, I think you did the same thing. I was at the middle school. You used to coach in middle school.
I did one year too.
Oh, did you? Oh, look at you! Yeah.
Yeah, I had the girls tournament.
Well,
we got rough shot. Whatever,
here nor there. But I remember the coach of this team who was essentially recruiting was walking around with a pen and pad, and I noticed that he had stars next to certain kids' names, and I sir, can I ask what are the stars for? And he basically looked at me and said, "A-hole parents," and instantly those kids were not going to be recruited because he didn't feel like not only listen it from the kid, but listen it from the parent for the next 4 years about how exactly that, like they should be starting on the roster when they're trying to put out D1 athletes every single year. I know we're getting kind of sidetracked with that, but I'm glad you guys did see that story. I don't know if those guys would have actually won or hurt someone. Could they get charged for that? It seems like if you're a knowing grown man going out there and assaulting a child essentially on the field, I mean, we laugh about it, but
yeah,
there's something wrong about that. I mean, I'm kind of glad they got what they deserve, but still, I'm still kind of worried about that kind of stuff happening.
I imagine early on IMG picked up on what was going on. Probably even warm-ups. Probably they saw. There's no way these guys are for real.
Yeah, that's my guess too. I mean, I can only imagine they asked for like film or something like that. Usually teams swap film so they don't have to do it.
Yeah, this fails a lot of like
checks.
Is this stupid checks, right? Like, I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything, but I feel like IMG had a kind of being on it.
Right? You think they do?
But like, how do you? Because you made a really good point about tape, like getting tape. How are you going to play somebody on national TV and not have to look at their tape? And when you go looking for their tape and you get nothing back, what are you thinking at that point?
Man, what a great program. They they don't even have tape on them.
Yeah.
What a powerhouse, you know.
Hey, look at us going on ESPN again. Isn't that great for our school and great for our players and great for our brand? We won't ask any more questions.
All right, real talk, real question. Would you do it? If you had the opportunity to go out and play on ESPN, to go against IMG, and you get a couple plays, whatever position you want, and we can run that scam. We're not going to get sharp. We don't have warrant out for our arrest or anything. We go out there. Would you do it?
Now or at
Yeah,
25?
right now.
Right now, no. I die. I'm getting off the bus.
Okay. Okay. Ink?
Nah, I'm out too.
Okay, fair enough. In my head, I say, yeah, heck yeah. Like I go out there, but the second I walked onto the field, and I'd want all of it. I'd want the quarterback position. Like I'm calling my own plays. It's no huddle offense. It's the old backyard. Just get open. Like, if I see you, I'll throw it to you. Yeah, why not? You know, I'm on ESPN. If I know I'm not getting in trouble and I get to play a game on ESPN, the only problem is I'm probably like a living meme like the rest of my life because I guarantee that game doesn't. I'm old enough to know enough that game does not end well for me.
A fun fact: I actually went to a practice for a semi-pro team.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So this is in like my early to mid 20s. I think me at that time would do it. Because at that time, when I was still coaching, like I'd go play on scout defense and shove some guys around, and everything would be fine. And like I was like, yeah, I can do this. Put me down. Like, no, I got tired walking back up the stairs just now. Like, no, I'm good on that.
Yeah, fair enough. We probably would have given them a run. I bet we would have. We were all studs.
Sure, but like there's things that like. I mean, I played in high school for a couple of years, and I kind of left it and I put it, and I regret it in hindsight. But I didn't have the level of aggression that you needed. And like once I captured that mindset and like it's really just flipping a switch and you're just a nasty ass, a-hole, over the course of 60 minutes or whatever it is, and you have to do anything in your power to just be violent. Like once you understand that mindset, you can be completely different. I think as like 16, 17 or 18-year-olds maybe that haven't quite developed that mindset yet, save for like your true elites.
All right, so I wasn't going to bring this up, but I'm going to actually, just because you segued almost into it. So my son, you guys know, I'm remarried. I have a stepson, and he is playing football for the first time ever. Okay, he does not know what position he plays. But I can tell you he plays linebacker and he plays center. Okay, they play both ways. And he himself struggles with that. He struggles with the aggression. He doesn't really know what's going on. And so a coach essentially said, like, you need to be more aggressive. You need to go out there and get up, and that kind of thing. So I went to his very first game this past week, and they're essentially doing like this open scrim. I don't know, I wouldn't even call it a game. It's like a showcase where essentially offense plays defense for 5 minutes, and they switch teams and all this kind of good stuff. As he was playing linebacker, his idea of being aggressive, and it's so embarrassing, was the other team's player would run the ball, he would fall on the ground, and he would run over to that person and kick them. Okay. And right. Okay. So you can imagine like me on the sidelines, like being just beyond embarrassed. You know what I mean? And I've got parents going, oh my God, he just kicked him. Next play. Referee didn't see it. Coaches didn't see it. Next play. Surest thing. They run right. My boy, being aggressive, runs over and like kicks the player. Now, you guys know my son, like he is extremely, extremely literal. So I could see a coach over there going, you need to get more aggressive. You need to kick him while he's down, and him going like, okay, like sounds good, coach, like if that's what I need to do, and we talked to him obviously, and he did get stopped. We were yelling at our own coach saying like, hey, hey, stop our kid, like
there's aggressive and then there's assault and battery. There's two different things.
Vontaze Perfect knows about this.
What's that?
Vontaze Perfect knows about this.
But exactly, well, that's exactly what that's who we watch film on. Everyone wants to be Tom Brady, not my kid. But God, my God, it was so like embarrassing, and like we did tell him, like I said, if this is what you view, like we're done with football. Like you can go do ballet. That's fine.
It's hard to get when you're new to it, right? Because that was kind of my issue. I didn't play till I was in ninth grade, 13, 14, whatever I was. And it was hard for me to, like, I wasn't that kind of aggressive person. I just didn't understand what I was getting into.
Mhm.
And then like I saw a similar case when I was coaching. I remember there was this kid, and we filmed one of our scrimmages. This poor dude got blocked out over the bench, like over the bench,
Mhm.
right, like all the way off the field, outside the chalk, and like he felt like the dude pushed him into the bench, and he fell over the bench.
Mhm.
And it's like that kid's not that he's not doesn't have a chance, but like until you kind of understand that level, and like I'm not saying it has to be innate, but you have to be able to turn on and like be a different person.
Right.
And like if you can't, like it's gonna be a lot harder for you. You're not you can stay there to have fun and play or whatever, but you're not going to excel necessarily. Not everybody has to excel at
Yeah, you don't need to
anything or
excel at
everything. It's not
everything.
about
But
like
yeah,
the kids that understand that, like that's what gets them, on varsity as a 10th grader, or there's a kid that I coached in 9th grade and played, he's on the Buffalo Bills now, I think, right? Like those dudes that they played really, really young, and like they hadn't, that kind of coaching all along to understand that, during the football game, between the whistles, you're a different person. You need to be a different beast.
and that's okay. I mean, like it's allowed there.
Yeah.
It's encouraged. This is your chance to get that out.
Yeah, we talked about like some of the, or maybe we talked about talking about like some of the players, the NFL players that are successful in other ways, like John Urschel or
Jason Wright. Look at Jason Wright in Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, like I think he's a perfect example. I mean, he has turned himself into a top quality businessman, and someone even I'm like starting to idolize. I mean, like I sit there and say, oh my God, what an impressive person. And all the things he's doing.
The point being that you can be both. I'm not Laurent Tardif. He's a medical doctor.
The guy from Florida State a few years ago, right?
Oh no, that's Myron Rolle.
Roll. I was thinking Roll. Yeah, sorry.
That's actually like has an MD from like McGill in Canada or something. Played for the Chiefs for a while. He sat out last year. But anyway, it's understanding that like you can be an absolute beast on that playing offensive line. Same thing, John Urschel, that played for the Ravens. That's like a PhD candidate in mathematics. Like you can be that person and then be a completely different person when you're not playing the game. Like you have to kind of understand how to square that, and like that's where you can be really successful.
Well, and sadly, then we also see the other end of that spectrum where we see guys.
And then the interesting thing about that is the linemen typically have to be the most aggressive, and most of those guys off the field are just big teddy bears. They're just the friendliest, nicest guys you'll ever meet. But once that whistle blows, like you're saying, they are just vicious, mean, nasty, within the rules, nasty people.
I think with that position, though, too, there's so much underrated amount of technique and so much, mind games that are being played and understanding kind of more what's going on. You can't do both. You can either let go emotionally or you can stay, logical, and the best, seem to find that balance somewhere in between. Those linemen, are naturally gifted, just large, massive men, and they work hard for it. But there's so much, like I said, that they're doing. I think they're able to turn them off easier. It's some of these other, positions that you worry about. And I don't know if it's CT stuff or I don't know if it's just guys who just can't turn it off. Who were we talking about just the other day? We were joking about one of the players that got in trouble. Ja'Marr Chase from Cincinnati, who just got drafted, and there was a rumor. We have I have no idea if any of this is true, but there was a rumor that he was out there hurting people. I believe his girlfriend or whatever it was, and we don't know. I mean, this could be one of those things where she's just stirring up stuff. We see that happening more and more too. But you always worry when you see these cases of guys who just can't turn it off, outside the lines. But I think that's probably a different conversation for a different day. I know we were originally talking about, college football. And there are some other storylines out there that I'm really curious about. For example, I was telling you about, Kansas State's got a player who's going to be playing in his 7th year this year. He's probably my age at this point. You've got James Skalski, who is a linebacker over at Clemson, who's going to be playing in his 6th season. He's already played in 5 ACC championship games. He's played in 8 playoff games. I'm likely going to be breaking all sorts of tackling records, and he was all ACC last year and could have gone to the NFL, but he chose, he needed one more year of college. So he is taking 2 extra laps before he takes his services professionally. And good for those guys. I mean, I am curious to see how all that happens. The transfer portal, the extra year. We're going to see the same thing happen in college basketball here in just a little while. but all kind of these teams that are going to be around. I'll be curious to see if a team, and I was saying earlier that, to you guys, that my sleeper team this year is Louisiana, who've won 10 games back-to-back years. They're ranked 25 right now as the polls came out, and they're returning mostly everybody. Not a whole lot of guys, going pro. Are these guys going to be able to, transition and make a big jump and maybe try to get themselves, to the top 10 at some point this season? I guess we'll just kind of have to wait and see.
Now, with things like that, though, I think it's unfair that for Louisiana to go from 23, 24 to number one, it's going to take 3 seasons. It's not going to be something they're going to do this year. They're going to have to win.
This is the third season. That's the part that stinks. Is you're right. Them starting so low, without either whooping people, just over and over and over again, or them. I haven't seen their entire schedule. But, if they don't play, a couple studs and, and win those games kind of mightily, you're right. I think they're outside of the conversation.
No, just look at their schedule real quick. I just Googled it. They play Texas. That's the only ranked team they play. They play Ohio and Nicholls State. That's their schedule. So not enough really to do anything.
Yeah. So, so even, we got this early matchup we were talking about, Clemson, Georgia. They're never jumping one of those teams. The loser of that game, they're never jumping. And it doesn't really matter. We're kind of comparing them to Boise State, before they beat Oklahoma a few years ago, where they're kind of always on that outside edge. Now, they might have a good season, but they're going to have to really do some work, and not just win, but win big, if they're going to try to sneak anywhere to the playoffs. I don't think that's realistic for them. I think their realistic goals are trying to slip into to the top 10. I think if they could do that, that's good.
If they can make a New Year's Day bowl game, that would be their victory, really.
Yeah, and I think that's realistic for them. But that's going to be the team I'm looking for. I know Coastal Carolina is one of those big teams out there, and we'll just kind of see how things kind of play out throughout this week. I'm excited for Maryland versus WVU. I'm a little nervous about that game, if I'm being honest. Also, because I went to school in West Virginia. A lot of friends of mine are big WVU fans. I guarantee I'm going to hear from them if things go south for the Turtles. But that should be a fun Saturday for me. But hopefully I'll get to avenge it if Georgia lays the wood to Clemson like I'm hoping for. But otherwise, it might be a really long day and a really rough Sunday for me. So we'll find out. We have a little bit of time here. One of the things we also wanted to talk about was kind of it's the end of the MLB season, or at least we're kind of approaching that point in the season. We kind of know roughly who's going to be there, but the local teams, at least with the Nationals and the Orioles, they are out. And for the Orioles in particular, they are way out of it. And we've kind of joked about them. Let's call it what it is. They're tanking the season. And so I want to ask you guys, Nal, I'll probably start with you. What is your feeling about tanking, and specifically the Orioles tanking in baseball?
So pre-warning, I'm having some internet issues here, so we might lose me at some point in time.
Okay.
My thing is I think there's an issue with baseball. Like, there's such a lag between quote unquote trust the process and that process playing out that I think it can be prohibitive in terms of what you're trying to do. I think your fan base and your ownership and even some of your team starts to run out of patience for trust the process when it's 3 or 4 years of 100+ losses. And I just Orioles are creeping up on 2 of 3 seasons of the current manager, the current regime being 110+ loss seasons. The one that wasn't would be the pandemic season. So it's
and they were going to be in the running for that one too. Yeah. We actually did like a whole freeze thing. We were there for a second. I was saying the Orioles are going to be in the running for 100 and some losses that season too. Do you trust the process? Ink, what do you think? Are you okay with this or no?
No, I think that it's kind of similar to my Tigers back in the early 2000s when they were losing 90, 95, 100. They lost 119 games in 1 year. I just think with baseball, it's one of those things that's hard to really overcome the catastrophic nature of a losing team, because once you start losing games and you're kind of out of it by May, June, July, they're 42 out.
162 games.
Yeah, that's crazy. So that means they still have 32 more games to play, and if they won every single one of them, they might possibly be 15 out if they were other teams are losing. It's just a crazy thing to overcome. So I think it's one of those slippery slopes and they kind of give up, and it just isn't. It's hard to really overcome.
They've been traveling all year. They know what the season is at this point. They haven't made any major acquisitions. They're bringing up new guys. I mean, life on the road is getting old. They miss their families. Like it's wearing at this point. And it's difficult, I'm sure, for some of these teams not to play more individualized baseball. You're kind of looking out for themselves and their own stats.
No, I think with the Orioles, though, we talked about them having a really good minor league system. I think that's the glimmer of hope is next year there'll be some marked improvement, and the following year they could really have some depth to their major league roster with some of those prospects.
And I think that's the goal, right? I think that's the hope is that those guys, they knew, and we've said this before, they knew that they are going to realistically have a better chance of playing it like the Tampa Bay Rays have been. One of the best records in baseball, as opposed to, trying to do it between Boston and New York style. It's not going to be a free agent place, so you might as well give up on that dream. And if you do, you're going to have to overpay to get there. The fan base at this point is kind of checked out. It's been a lot of seasons in a row, where they haven't really been successful. The Nationals, I would say, at least have a few years because they still have that World Series and years of contending. So I'd say they've got 3 years or so before fans start checking out from there.
Mm-hmm.
We've bad seasons, before fans start checking out. But the Orioles fans are kind of already there, and they've had to do it kind of the slow and steady and rebuild that system. But once again, remember the Nationals had to do the same thing. When the Nationals were god-awful, they got 2 good players in the name of Steven Strasburg and Bryce Harper back-to-back seasons. And that made a huge difference in the organization. And that kind of flipped things around for them. That's when they made the Jason Worth signing. And I think that's what you're going to see. They overpaid for him, without a doubt. They overpaid for him, but it changed the culture. It changed the way that they were doing things, and they allowed.
I think with baseball more than other sports, you kind of have to parlay several off seasons together as opposed to one.
Right.
Because in basketball and football,
you're 2 players away. Basketball, you're 2 players away.
One good off season, you can be good.
Good draft.
Baseball, it's at least 3 good drafts and 3 good off seasons for you to overcome, especially where the Baltimore Orioles have been the past few years, especially.
But the good news, I would say, in baseball is that window can seem to be open for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So if they can bring, I was telling you, before the show, I used to work for the Bowie Bay Sox, and I remember watching the Akron Arrows come into town, and they were by far the top prospects. Carlos Santana, I think, was on that team. When he wasn't playing, guitar with Rob Thomas, but they were just phenomenal. And I watched it. I mean, I watched them progress into AAA because I couldn't help be interested and see if those guys turned out because I was talking to those guys all the time. And then they opened up a window, it seemed like, for the next decade where they were at least, competing. And I'm really hoping that's what happens. They've got some young players, that are already at the major league level. They've got pitching and means. At least they have one starting pitcher, who could be there. And I think the goal is for them to kind of, wait these next 2 years. If the fans can hold out for 2 years, we could see this team compete. I also think you'll probably see them make a managerial change at that point. I think right now they're holding on because they know what they are. There's no use of overpaying, and they need to just kind of teach these guys to be major leaguers right now. But in a few years, I wouldn't be shocked to see them try to go out and get a veteran. I loved it when Buck Showalter was here.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It's probably going to be someone else. I don't know if Tom Lasorda is going to be out there or Tony La Russa or whatever it is. Tony La Russa, who is coaching with Chicago right now.
Yeah.
Who just seems like a character himself, by the way. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, he just hasn't changed a bit. He's lucky cell phones weren't around, early on, because I could only imagine. It looks like we lost our other Andrew.
Yep.
So you want to talk about him while you can't hear us? Can you believe some of his takes he's had this year? And he's back. Hey, buddy, our microphones were messed up.
It sounds like they are. My bandwidth is low, I'm told. I suspect that to be fraudulent. Oh, maybe it's better. But I've been listening to with it. Sorry, I mean, not that I have a ton to contribute there anyway. I mean, baseball's kind of my number 3 or 4 most interesting sport. So, I do. I think I expressed my concern. I hear you guys in terms of this process can be successful. It has been successful recently. I just, and the Orioles that had a good run for 4 or 5 years during the Showalter era. It's just like you know, I'm just curious to see what the payoff's going to be in a city that's already not a huge, not huge baseball town anyway.
Not anymore. Not anymore. In those mid 90s, you know, when
Sure.
95, 96, 97, even 98, you know, that's when they were, you know, hitting all the home runs, and effing Jeffrey Mayer, you know, ruined it for us in 97. But, you know, they were good times. I still remember those times. I can't believe those times were over 20 years ago. that stings a little bit. But hopefully we won't have to wait much longer. Gentlemen, that is about it for us. It is getting late. We actually gotta go to work tomorrow. Like, you know, we teachers on here, we're used to having Wednesdays. It's kind of these
Oh, yeah.
days. Now we
We still have Wednesdays. They're just not.
yeah, right. You know, so
Some of us
it's gonna
work
be-
all the days.
well, yeah, well, lucky for you. I mean, you called that early. You said, no, I'm getting out of teaching. I'm going to, you know, working on the computers. And now you get to work from home. And look at you having the foresight to do something like that. Proud of you.
Yeah. I mean, I relapsed for a little while, but I got clean again. So
Once you figure out your bandwidth situation, I'll start giving you more credibility. But
well, well, it heard me talking smack about it, and everything seems to be worked out for the moment.
yeah, out of
I mean,
respect.
out of the three of us, you're the tech guy and you're the low bandwidth guy too now. So that's kind of a.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I am running I have 3 screens, 2 laptops, a webcam. I have about 88 USB devices. I'm
Go
putting some stress
via
on
the
that.
office. Andrew lost his bandwidth.
Before we get cut off, gentlemen, I want to give a cheers to you. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Enjoy college football season. I will be texting you when Georgia is whooping up on Clemson. And hopefully I'll be happy because the Terps have already smacked those Mountaineers on the way back to Morgantown. So enjoy your drinks, gentlemen. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you next week.